You said, I love that song.
I did.
You did.
I did.
And?
I said, I love that song. And a little voice from the back shouted out, little kid, I hated it.
I love that. That's I think, an all-time favorite story. Hi, I'm Sharon.
I'm Bram
This is Famous.
with Jacy Valeras.
Well, you're the one who watches me doing interviews constantly, so this is actually kind of nerve-wracking because of everyone that I know, you're the one that pays the closest amount of attention to what I do. Sharon watches my television show every week.
That's
pretty
fantastic.
much. She's
watched it a lot.
And I feel like it's come full circle because
Here we are.
Here we are.
But I've enjoyed it.
When I was driving around the country with my wife Ruth,
Yes.
we used to listen to the radio a lot, and we listened to two different kinds of stations. We listened to classical music, and we listened to country music.
Really?
Yeah, because we love classical music, of course, but the musicianship on the country music is fantastic. They're really, really good players.
Yeah.
You probably know that.
Well, I'm a little biased because I grew up in the middle of country music, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, aside from you guys, which I guess is where we'll start. When I was 5 years old, I went to my first concert, which was Sharon, Lois, and Bram. And that was my first musical influence. So the fact that you always performed songs that had such a wide array of influence, country music, jazz, pop, rock.
Yeah.
What were your early influences in music growing up?
For me, it was primarily folk music. And when I was a teenager, it was the sort of current rock and roll. But I was not the kind of kid who went to the concerts, or teenager who went to the concerts and screamed. That was not my personality. I wasn't, that was not me.
Yeah.
No, mine either. I listened to pop music. I listened to, top 10, top 100. The first song that I ever learned to accompany on the guitar when I was just learning was Don't Be Cruel.
Really?
Yeah, by Elvis Presley. And you know what? That was a really good start.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say there could have been worse artists you could have
I know.
been influenced
Well,
by.
and it was simple. It was like three chords, like a folk song.
Right, exactly.
So,
Right. I want to talk about your decision to go into music. I know it wasn't actually something that you thought of and you said, this is going to be my career. But was there ever a moment, I'll start with you, Bram, when you were growing up, listening to these songs, learning Don't Be Cruel, that you thought, I think I'm actually going to become a professional musician?
no, it didn't come that early. It came a whole lot later. For a long time, it was just something that I liked doing.
Yeah.
Playing music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But someone said, why don't you do it for an audience? I said, what? Why don't you do it for an audience? And the first place that I did was in one of the folk clubs
Which one?
in Toronto, the Village Corner.
Oh, that was one of the very first ones.
That's right. That's right. And I performed there for, 11 people. And I said,
Hey.
"What? This is
Fun.
yeah. It was really good."
Yeah.
And so that was kind of my first really small step into it. And it grew gradually from that.
Right.
Right, yeah.
And then you went into teaching.
That was quite a bit after that.
Okay.
Because I was performing. I was being a guitar accompanist to Alan Mills, who was a famous folk singer, a generation older than me. He had a radio show and did recordings, and his name has not lasted in the world, and it makes me sad because he deserved it. I was his accompanist, and I traveled all over Canada and a good part of the United States with him. But it was only occasionally that, and only occasionally in the folk clubs, I thought, It'd be nice to have a regular income.
Yeah. Yes. Most
Earn money
musicians
every
want that.
week.
Yeah. And so I went back for a year to teacher's college, and I got my elementary school teacher's certificate, and I started teaching. And my first salary teaching sixth grade was $48,000 a year.
Wow.
You remember that?
Oh, I sure do.
I was big money.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. It was really, really small money. I mean, it was like
Don't
a
do
few
the math.
$100s a month. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But
But you were making an income, and you were doing something that you loved
Yeah.
to do, which was play music and involve children.
And my principal, he liked what I liked, and he put me on the school public address.
Really?
Often I sang to the whole school.
Oh, isn't that
sometimes.
nice?
Yeah.
Wow. Amazing.
Wouldn't happen like that now, I'll bet. Or it's rare.
Yeah.
There are probably a few like that.
Well, speaking of school, I know that you have a very famous story about dropping out of school to pursue a career. So let's talk about that.
The thing is that the music in my life was always. I grew up in an environment, in a community that sang folk songs, that sang all the time. And my family had a cottage in a community where every Friday night there was a campfire, and Saturday there were concerts. So people singing together was a way of life for me. Mm-hmm. I also I was a natural with kids. So when I was in grade 6, the kindergarten teacher would call on me to come down and help with the children, which I liked to do.
Yep.
I started to play guitar when I played piano for much of my life, and I played cello in high school. And I learned guitar from a friend taught me when I was a teenager, about 16, I think. And we used to go to a folk music club called the Bohemian Embassy. It was a real coffee house. They did everything there. They had folk music, they had poetry reading, they had theater stuff. They had jazz. It was a real coffee house. And on Sunday nights they'd have a hootenanny, which is where people get up one at a time or two or whatever and sing one or two songs. At one of those events, I was called on to sing. I was terrified.
Really?
Oh, I'd never done anything like that. I'd sung, with groups of people just for fun, but I'd never sung to perform. That was a new experience. But I liked it.
Yeah.
I got up and sang my one song, and I thought that was okay. And then the owner of that coffee house offered me, come and sing on a Friday night, come and do the evening. And I said yes, and then I didn't turn up because I was too scared.
No way. I did not know that.
I did not turn up, but he gave me a second chance. He offered me again, and he sent someone to get me.
Just to make sure you were going to be there.
Sure.
Yes, he was a wonderful, wonderful man, Don Cullen. Anyway, it kind of grabbed me at that point. I was probably 17, and when I went back, it was during the summer. Went back to school in the fall, and by October or November, I was conflicted.
Yeah.
And I grew up in a home where education was vital. It was what you did. It was your opportunity. Mm-hmm. And one day I was in a math class, and I turned to my friend behind me and said, should I quit school? And she said, you might as well. You haven't been doing your homework. So I quit school that day.
Yeah.
And started to sing.
And somewhere along the way, you all started singing for children primarily. I know Lois was working in the libraries doing music for children. You were connected through Mariposa and doing music for children, as were you.
I was doing some music for children and grown-ups as well.
Yep.
But you did music for children, even as a teacher. You
Yes.
toured around to different schools,
That's right.
and you even entertained my daughter in her elementary
That's
school.
right.
Yeah, everything comes full circle with Sharon,
That's so
Lois, and
funny.
Bram.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah.
Well, every interview I've ever sat down and watched the two of you do, the first question that everybody asks you is, how did you get started? So I'm not going to ask you that. We all know you got started somewhere around 1978. You came together and decided to make an album because there wasn't a children's album that you maybe felt was representative of what you wanted to put out into the world for children.
I'd say that's true. There were children's albums
Right.
out, and some of them were good, but they weren't what we had.
Exactly. You felt like you had your own voice, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, we decided to make an album because we had something to say, not because we said, oh boy, we're going to do something that nobody else has we're going to do something that nobody else has ever done. But that was not a mandate for us. It was just, let's make an album that reflects our values, the things we think that children deserve, and make it good.
Right.
Well, the idea of it and the identity of it, is the subtitle of the first album. It was entitled One Elephant, Deux Éléphants. It was bilingual. And also the subtitle was a children's record for the whole family.
Yeah.
And that was important to us too. We wanted everyone to listen to it and enjoy it, not just send the kids
Right.
into another room.
Right. I think when people introduce you, they introduce you as award-winning, platinum-selling children's entertainers. But I've always thought, to your point, Bram, it's more family entertainment, because anytime I've been to see you perform, anytime I've watched footage of you performing, it really is an entire family affair. Their moms and dads are up on their feet. They're performing with their kids. They're teaching their kids how to be a part of something special like that.
You just said something that I think is really important. If parents want their children to participate, they better be doing it too. They watch their parents. They get a message from their parents. And if the parents sit glued to their seats and they want their kids to stand up and do it, it ain't going to happen.
No, they lead by example, right?
Of course.
So in those early days when you were putting together the first record and then the second record, working with a team of people, I feel like individuals, you always have something unique to bring to the table. And when you don't, and you're all kind of scrambling to make something work, that's when a group of people sometimes don't work together. So did you all have separate roles of things that you brought to the group? Like Sharon, I know you're incredibly organized. You're good at bookkeeping. You're good at math and accounting and things like that. You know, did you all kind of sit down and say, well, I'm good at this. This is what I can do? Or did it all just kind of fall into place?
I'm good at, did you hear the one about
Yeah, you are. Yes, you are always the one with the jokes.
We did not do that. I think we just kind of fell into roles. We collaborated on everything. We talked about everything. But it becomes clear, sometimes it becomes clear what you're better at.
Right.
Not because you say, gee, I'm really good at this.
Right. Do you know what those things were, looking back on those early days?
Well, for myself, I always had an interest in languages other than English.
Yep.
And so French was my best subject in high school. So I knew French, and I had been studying Spanish on my own too, and I always thought it was really important to get the pronunciation right. So I don't say gracias.
Gracias.
I say gracias.
Okay.
My role in the recording was often to suggest songs in another language and also to kind of monitor, does it sound right?
Does it sound right?
And help us with pronunciation and all of that,
Yeah.
that sort of thing, which is
Exactly.
important.
What
I
about
think
you?
I was, in the studio, I was, probably pitch was a thing with me. You know, if pitch was, and what?
And I've listened to a lot of our previous recordings, and it worked. Your pitch sensitivity.
Yeah.
We
I
were
agree.
on pitch,
Yeah.
which is not the case universally.
No, of course, and that was really important.
And it wasn't at a time when you could just digitally fix those things.
no.
You had to get it right when you were in the studio.
And we had this funny relationship later on in our career with Paul Mills and Chad Urshik, who were producing. We'd sing something and then come into the control booth, and they say that was fine. We would turn around immediately and go back into this. We do not strive for fine.
Yeah. What was Lois's role in that space, in the recording space, or maybe with the trio?
She had a background in classical music, and she also had a background in show music, like Broadway songs.
Yeah, she loved that.
And so anytime you hear a song that comes out of that source, it's probably because it was part of Lois's musical world.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she was also a person with a million ideas. So, that was a feature of Lois for sure. What's interesting about Lois's role in all of this is that she came to the idea of children's music like out of the blue. It wasn't out of the blue. She came to it because her son David was in a nursery school, and they asked her to bring music to the school, and she said, I can only do Bach and Beethoven. And they said, whatever you do is more than what we've got now. But she learned about she learned about children's music and what was out there and what was available. So she gathered a lot of information, a lot of repertoire, and became very good and knowledgeable about it.
Well, your collaborative teamwork worked because your first album went on to be very successful, as did all of your other albums. So one of the reasons why I wanted to put this specific kind of a show together is because I'm fascinated by people who have experienced a high level of fame. And the reason I'm fascinated by that is because a lot of new artists going into the music industry, I think they have an expectation of what that kind of success is going to feel like, be like, what their experience will be. And from my perspective, it's not always what you think it's going to be, both good and bad.
No, it's not.
Right.
It's not. There are always problems of one kind or another.
It's called life.
Right. And you think as you get more and more famous, it's going to get easier and easier. It's not. The problems grow.
Right, exactly.
With the progress of your career. So what was a problem that big back then, over 10 years later, is that big.
Right.
And there's more at stake.
Yeah.
It's like parenting, Bram. Little children, little kids. Big children, little children, little problems. Big children, big problems.
Yeah.
And you're often doing it in front of other people, right? Like you're experiencing things. One of the questions I wanted to ask you was, when you're having a bad day and you're not famous, it's hard enough to deal with being around your family or having to go to work or something. When you were having a bad day, do you think it was more difficult to get on stage and perform, or to be in front of a camera and filming a scene from a television show? Could you hide that more easily in a different scenario?
I think it makes no difference. I believe it made no difference in the world. I think, and that comes out of doing something you really love. Loved to get on stage, loved to get in front of the camera, and it took you away from life. And I had a lot of health issues along the way, and went through a lot of stuff. But once you're out there doing it and you love what you're doing, that's the real gift.
Right.
Well, the marker for me is that my mother had an accident from which she never recovered. She was in the hospital all along, and then she died. And we had a big concert scheduled for the time that turned out to be right after she had died. And I did a pair of concerts with the trio between the time she died and the time she was buried. And I thought, how am I going to do this? And I thought, well, you do it.
You just get through it.
You do it. Because that's what you're about. And while you're on stage, that's all you're thinking about, because it does take all of your attention.
Yeah.
which is great.
It's a gift.
Yeah.
It is. You almost have to decompartmentalize what you're going through. Do you think being in front of children makes that a little bit easier? Because I find that going through hard times in my own life, being around younger people like my nephews, it's almost like it's easier to step away from those hard times when you're around those people. Do you think the children have helped you through those maybe more difficult times in your life?
I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know either,
question.
but there's, our relationship with children in the audience is so real. They are so real that it's easier, I think, to be real with them. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's hard to say. I think what we're doing is what takes us away from the hardship.
Yes.
So, talking about real responses from children, I remember we did a song called the African song.
Che Che Kool-Aid.
Che Che Kool-Aid, which is very loud. It's got a lot of percussion in it.
Yep.
It's an echo song.
And it just fills the hall.
Yep.
And for whatever reason, after that, we programmed that I was going to do Candyman Salty Dog, which is a very quiet, starts out quiet, gets a little louder and then quieter again. Mm-hmm. And it's an echo song also.
Right.
And I had to talk them down a little bit from the first song to the next song. And as part of my introduction to One Elephant, I said,
Not One Elephant, Candyman.
Candyman. The One Elephant was a different song, wasn't it?
Yeah.
There are so many.
Yeah, I know. I said about Che Che Kool-Aid, I said, boy, that was a great song, wasn't it? And
you said I love that song.
I did.
You did.
I did.
And?
I said, I love that song. And a little voice from the back shouted out, little kid, I hated it.
I love that. That's I think an all-time favorite story.
If I ever get it right again.
Hey, they can be a tough crowd, children.
Sometimes the parents can. Remember, we heard from our live album. Bram used to listen to mixes through headphones, and you were listening to a mix of from live.
Yeah.
Where we had people stand during the concert. They'd stand up and sit down, which was a Sharon, Lois, and Bram way. And I was doing If I Could Have a Windmill, and I asked people to stand up
That's
again.
right.
And what did you hear?
Well, I heard, oh God, not again. And
We didn't leave that on.
well, no, we just cut out.
Not again.
No, we left out, oh God.
We didn't leave not again.
Yeah.
No, it's not there.
All right, all
He's
the super
making
fans
that
are
up.
going to have to go back in and listen, try to find
exactly.
it. Do you remember the first time you were recognized in public? Or one of the first times maybe you were asked for an autograph or a picture or something like that?
Well, I've had people say to me, well, I recognize you.
It's funny.
What,
They don't know why.
Were you my doctor at some point? I said, no. I said, oh, well, were you my teacher at some point? I said, well, what school did you go to? And they named the school. I said, no. And she said, well, then I don't know, who you are. And I said, I'm Bram from Sharon, Lois, and Bram. Oh, like that.
Yeah.
It's hard to remember the first time. I remember one amusing time when I was at a movie and I was in line for popcorn, and the woman either in front or behind me said, you look exactly like Sharon from Sharon, Lois, and Bram. And I said, I know.
Wait, did you not admit to it? You just said, I know?
Yeah,
I
left her for a moment, but I'm not that cruel.
Do you ever, I think I already know how you're going to answer this, but I don't know that I've ever been with you two out in public, and we've been out quite a bit, where someone hasn't come over to the table to speak with you and to tell you, some of these people come up and they cry and they tell you a story about their childhood. Mm-hmm. Some of these people just want a minute to thank you. Some want a picture. Yeah. Does it ever get daunting when you're out with your families or friends?
No.
Yeah.
No, it's real.
It's beautiful.
It's genuine feedback about people's lives.
Right. And sometimes they say, I'm sorry for interrupting you. And I often say, without you, there'd be no us.
What a fantastic attitude to have about it.
I mean, where would we be without people who cared about what we did? And the fact that they care still is deeply touching.
So many years later.
Yes.
Because we're not on TV anymore,
Right.
except now.
Well, that is very true. And you're also TikTok famous.
That's so funny since when it comes to TikTok, you couldn't find more naive than Sharon and Bram, but tell us what to do and we do it and we're happy.
You're up for anything all the time.
What's lovely is that people respond to what we do. They remember the way they used to do that song or variations on it, and they talk about their childhood. One of the comments that seems to come up often, which I'd never heard before, is memory unlocked.
Yes.
And I think that's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish it would happen to me.
That your
Your memory
that's
would
called
be unlocked.
remembering unlocked.
But also, I think, there are a lot of people who are angry with TikTok for reasons that I don't quite understand because I don't really follow it. But we are one corner of TikTok that makes it all worthwhile.
Well, it brings a lot of happiness to people. And there's a lot of very famous people who agree. I know there are people like Tiffany Haddish and Alessia Cara. I mean, Justin Bieber is online singing your songs. What does it feel like to know that you've influenced such a large amount of people who have actually gone on to have careers in music?
We have heard that on occasion from people. I mean, we have heard from people who say, I have this career because of you. It's an honor to feel that way, but I mean, we did what we did and people responded in the way they responded and took
From
what they needed.
no intention.
Of course
Right.
not. Of course not.
That's the best way, though. It was all kind of by accident. And
Yeah.
some of the best things in life happen that way.
Listen, every once in a while, someone says, I'm alive because of you.
Right.
Oh yeah, right.
What a responsibility. I mean, how do you feel about it when someone says that to you?
It's hard to know how to feel. It's like
It's
I
astounding.
didn't do anything to make that happen, but because of what we did, it gave enough lift to that life, to people who were stranded in horribly distant locations, who had no choice but stay inside through the whole winter because they had nowhere else to do, and they got really, really depressed, except for listening to our music or watching us on TV.
Also people who lived under really hard circumstances
Right.
in homes that were not healthy, happy.
Cruel parents.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we gave them a bit of goodness in their lives.
And what a legacy. I almost feel like that is, I mean, the music is very important. But the fact that you have influenced so many individuals, millions and millions of people, what a legacy to leave behind, to know that you've touched their lives through music.
Absolutely.
Yeah. When Lois passed away, there was a lot of media attention. That was unexpected.
Completely.
Yes.
I mean, her death was not unexpected, but the response to it was astounding to us. It was a complete surprise, and I'm happy that she
Yeah.
was honored in that way.
Yeah.
I'm just sorry she didn't.
Get to know it.
Right.
Well,
Right.
that was actually going to be my follow-up question to that. Do you think that she knew toward the end of her life what a legacy the three of you were going to,
I don't
leave
think
behind?
any of us really knew.
No, no.
I don't know that I still know, but I'm learning.
Well, but we do hear from people. First of all, we have the pleasure of meeting and singing for next generations, or people telling us that they're using our music with their children. I don't know that Lois had much of that opportunity, or I don't know it was as much obvious in those days.
Yeah. Well, it certainly is now. People are all over social media on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, sharing
Yep.
their own versions of your music.
And also, often we read, I miss Lois. People comment that they miss Lois, and I think that's deeply touching.
Right, especially because I think people often forget that she did stop touring
Right.
at an earlier stage in your career.
Right.
But the fact that what the three of you did together was so important to so many people, it's everlasting.
Yes.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. And that's honestly why it's now, what, 9 years since she's gone, to 2015, that what we have out there is Sharon, Lois, and Bram. She is still alive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And the recordings and everything else that we do out there, we haven't thrown her away, not at all.
She wouldn't allow that.
Looking back on your career and all of the amazing things that you were able to do as a trio, you have been able to reinvent yourself so many times. When Lois stopped touring, the two of you went out on the road. Bram, you have stopped with the big bulk of touring, although I know you do a lot of really amazing things still. But Randy, your daughter, has come in.
Right.
Not only is she managing all of the work that the trio still has going on, but she's performing with you.
Right.
So there's this whole new resurgence of Sharon, Lois, and Bram getting introduced to even more people.
It's incredible, actually. And sometimes when we play, my grandson, Randy's son, plays bass or guitar with us. And audience loves the idea of looking at a family up there.
They do.
I mean, our music is about families making music together, us trio making music for families. And the notion that we're a bit of a family up there carrying it on is great.
Well,
And
certainly with your family, and to a smaller extent mine.
yes.
Because I have a brother who plays a number of instruments, including the mandolin, and he's played the mandolin.
With us, it's so much fun.
Yeah.
So it's very, very much a family kind of. And Randy is intent on keeping she believes that what we created, the kind of music the trio created, music and television, etc., ideas, values, there's nothing trendy about it. It could live on forever as long as someone keeps it alive, and Randy is going to be that person.
It never goes out of style, that's for sure.
Well, you know, a lot of the songs are old songs, and to us they're old songs that we've kind of known all our life. But if you're 3 years old, She'll Be Coming Round the Mountain is a brand new song.
It is, absolutely. Well, I know you have all of the books, you Skinnamarink, One Elephant, and Peanut Butter.
Right.
A brand new vinyl that is going to be coming out, your first one in
Vinyl, it blows my mind.
so many years. You have such a balance of honoring the music that you did together as a trio and bringing that back to people, and then also creating new things. And I think that is one of the ways you continue to reinvent yourself if you want to have a career in the music industry. That's a really good way to do it, to keep coming up with creative ways to honor what you've done, but then also create new things.
Something new.
That has a lot to do with Randy. Because if Randy weren't around,
Yep.
I think we'd be just kind of putting our feet up and relaxing and saying, "Want that? Great."
And fortunately, Randy has the help of you and our pal Chris.
Yes, you do have a
We
excited
have a
team
wonderful-
around you.
We
I will say
do.
that.
a team of devotees.
Yeah.
Which means a lot to us.
Well, you mean so much to me, and I just want to end all of this by thanking you for the enormous influence you've had on my life. I am in the music industry. I have my career in television because of you. And, you know, it's just, what an honor to grow up admiring people and then have the chance to get to know them, become friends with them, and love them even more than I did when I was 5 years old looking up at my TV screen. The real Sharon and Bram are just so much greater than I could have ever
That's
ever
lovely.
anticipated.
That's lovely to hear.
And
Yeah.
thank you for coming into our lives.
Oh my goodness, it's been the honor of my life. So thank you both very much.
Pleasure.
Yeah.